I'm Mark Schneider, the Development and Marketing Manager of the Mark Twain Boyhood Home and Museum in Hannibal, Missouri, and this is the Prairie Farm Podcast.
I'm Mark Kenyon.
I'm Dr. Julie Meechin.
I'm Steve Hansen.
I'm Jill Bebout.
Chad Gravy.
My name is Jeremy French.
I'm Laura Walter.
Carol Hawksbergen, owner of Hoxie Native Seeds, and this is the Prairie Farm Podcast.
This is Hal Herring, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Podcast.
Skip Sly, Iowa Whitetail.
Valerie Van Coten, State Historical Society of Iowa.
Dr. Matt Helmer at Iowa State University.
My name is Kyle Laubarger with the Native Habitat Project.
I'm Judd McCullum. I appeared out of the wilderness, and this is the Prairie Farm Podcast.
Welcome to the Prairie Farm Podcast.
It may sound weird, but I actually ask my friends about their finances, but not only about how their finances are, but specifically things like how much money do you have in your bank account? Are you saving for your kids' future? Do you have a retirement plan that's in line? And the reason I ask these questions is because I know that finances put more stress on most people than anything else. And one of the biggest alleviators of stress from finances in my wife and I's life was when we switched to McKay Insurance. Now, we did this way before they were a sponsor of the podcast, but once we did it, we got our life insurance lined up, we got our health insurance for a much better deal, and we were able to bundle everything that we had, and we saved a bunch of money. We're actually able to connect with the people who are giving us our insurance and helping us do our financial planning. I highly recommend McKay Insurance. That's McKayInsagency.com. Alrighty. And they're not farts. It's just the chair. It's just the chair.
I think that should just be our intro.
Yeah, there you go. We had like thoughtful questions for an intro, but yeah, we'll talk about farts.
That would not be uncommon on
Mark
this
Twain
podcast.
would probably be happy about that.
Yeah, he would. Yeah.
Is he a big fart guy?
He was a humorist above all else. Mark Twain was a humorist. And if you look at his writings, although they do carry, issues and a voice and a certain tone with them, but above all, he loved to be funny. He loved making people laugh, probably loved making himself laugh more than anybody else, but he was a humorist. That's why there's the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor still presented today. And so his lectures, when he traveled the world, he would go and do lectures, and those lectures were essentially stand-up comedy specials before there was such a thing. He would go to Europe, he would travel all over Asia, Africa, and he would do these things. He would literally go into these halls and talk for hours on end, and you would walk away with more quotes than you could possibly stand. So a lot of people know him for him as the author, but he truly was an international celebrity that traveled the world and made people laugh.
Was there any predecessor of quote-unquote comedian before him?
Obviously there was comedy. There was obviously theater and things of those natures.
Yeah,
there was literature and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm sure that there were Mark Twain himself was fans of other speech givers and things like that. But as far as the reach that he had, the connection that he had with people all over the world, he was a very rare talent indeed, and it's still recognized hundreds of years later, currently. So his voice still rings true and says things that even address issues we see in today's climate. So he's, and again, I think that's because it was mainly around humor. He wanted to find the funny in all things, and so he often made fun of politics and religion and pretty much anything that you could do. He probably has a quote about it, and he loved to point out the humor in life, and that's really what his focus was.
There's this self-awareness in comedians today, and they kind of talk about needing attention and stuff like that. Did he have like an attention issue?
He definitely did. He was born into a family in a time where 50% of the children didn't live past the age of 9. So back, in the early 1800s, mid 1800s, you're talking about a mortality rate where parents expected to lose half the children they had. He had older sisters. He had a younger brother. He saw siblings pass away before they became adults. and he was a sickly child. He asked his mother in an interview after he was a grown man and had started to gain fame, were you worried that I would die? And her answer was, I was worried that you would live. And so he obviously came from a funny background, a family that had to find humor in life. They were an extremely poor family. They did not have money. They did not have a lot. And so he was very much at that cusp of lower middle class back in that time. They did not have the means to really be of a certain social class or standing. And so they found humor where they could. His dad was a very staunch and serious man. He was the justice of the peace in this area while they were here. But his mom was a social hostess that loved to have tea parties and have people over, no matter if they had furniture or not. And so he came from that background and saw that humor helped his family get through tough times. And obviously, being a somewhere in the middle child of a large family with very little to offer, he wanted that attention. And when he saw himself getting attention, especially that he could gain fame and fortune from that attention, then he was meticulous about his public image and how people saw him, and he wanted that attention very, very badly. So that was definitely something.
Was he pretty open about that?
I think if you read his autobiography, I think you'll get the hint. It's 3 volumes long. He put a stipulation on it that could not be released until 100 years after his death.
Wow.
Yeah, he thirsted for the attention.
He said, "You will remember me."
Yeah.
Wow.
So he now
did they follow that?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And some of that he said, I don't want any I'm going to say things, I don't want retaliation against family members and stuff, but he didn't even have he doesn't have a direct living descendant now.
Really?
So no. I mean, there's family of the Clemens and things, but as far as his direct family, all of his family's gone. He didn't have any surviving grandkids or anything like that. So he definitely wanted that attention. He thrived on it, and that came honestly and earnestly to him.
Was he I mean, you've studied this guy a bunch. Would you classify him as a good person?
He was a good person.
Okay.
He made his mistakes just like anybody else in life, but he was a good person. He was a devoted family man. He loved his family. Even as a child, he was very devoted to his family. He had a younger brother, Henry, who he convinced to join him on the river, on a riverboat. He was a riverboat pilot, and he convinced Henry to join a crew. His brother died on a riverboat explosion. Samuel Clemens, a.k.a. Mark Twain, was supposed to be on that riverboat with him and had gotten in an argument with the captain of the boat beforehand, and so he switched to a different boat. So he took that very, very personally. Wow. He felt very guilty about that. Later in life, his son Langdon died after they went out for an evening stroll, and he died of pneumonia. And Mark Twain convinced himself that it was his fault, that he didn't bundle the baby up enough, and that it was too cold for them to be out anyway. And so he took that very, very personally because he was a very devoted family man. He had a daughter die later in life of illness, and he was in Europe when he got word that she was dying. Most of the family was in Europe. She stayed behind because she was in the early stages of not doing well. He got word that time was short. He got on a boat to come back to America and found out halfway back that she had passed. So he wasn't in Europe with his family. He wasn't in America with his daughter. He took that very, very harshly. And again, humor was his escape for these things. The way that he felt about these things, for him, humor was that escape. And that's why he wrote the way he did and spoke the way he did, and his ideas were the way they were, is because he was a very good person. And when bad things happened, he took that very harshly. And so his best way to deal with those things was to laugh and to make other people laugh.
Interesting. They say that comedians are particularly sensitive. And to be a good comedian, you have to be really sensitive to how people feel, how people think about things, and probably really intelligent, which also makes it a lot worse because you are very, you're more sensitive to when people boo you off stage or, but it does seem like Samuel Clemens was a very sensitive human.
He was a very sensitive human, and he even in his adult life, for instance, a lot of people might hang the racist tag on Mark Twain's writings because of use of slang and things of that nature. He did use those words in his book for reasons, for effect and for purpose, and for you to understand the situation that he grew up in, the state that he grew up in, the community that he grew up in, the church that he grew up in, all of those things. He wants you to understand that that was his background for then what he became. Huck Finn is a story of, I don't like to use the word redemption, but it was a young white boy trying to fight over everything that he was taught in life to help a man of a different color. And so that was a self-reflection. He later in life would do things like he helped a young Yale law student pay for 3 years of board at Yale Law, a young man by the name of Warner T. McGuinn. He was a black law student. He became a lawyer in Baltimore. He fought Baltimore, the city of Baltimore, on segregated housing, public housing. He successfully won that case. He also shared an office with a young Thurgood Marshall, who would go on to be a U.S. Supreme Court justice. So him and Warner T. McGuinn, they kept their friendship throughout Mark Twain's life. He told the dean of students at Yale at the time that this dean came to him and said, this young man could use help. He's staying with I think he was staying with the groundskeeper at Yale. That's where he was sleeping, and working jobs just to pay, and was struggling. And the dean of students at Yale said, he could use help. And Mark Twain said, if it was a white student, I wouldn't do it. But we owe this to the black community. We owe it to this man because we've beaten down these people to the point that they have no hope left. And so we owe it to them to do this. And so he very much took that on. And he did that for a few people. He was a very good man with a good heart.
That's a great thing to bring up, because an interesting fact is that we're in Missouri right now. I mean, we could look probably out one of these windows and see Illinois.
Yeah, we can. And
Illinois was very much a non-slave state, is a free state, and Missouri, a little bit. It was one of the worst places to be during the Civil War.
Yeah, the old compromise.
And I had heard that, in Kansas as well, bleeding Kansas, but I didn't really appreciate it until I read, or listened to rather, T.J. Stiles' book on Jesse James, The Last Rebel. And however bad you thought Missouri was, it was worse.
Yeah.
You literally had neighbors that were violently divided over the issue of slavery, to the point where they would kill each other. They'd turn you into whichever military detachment that was on their side, and you'd be harassed by them. In fact, that's really what is believed to have radicalized the James family. So, both Frank and Jesse James, is their treatment by it's actually the Union Army. They did kind of a pseudo hanging of their stepdad, and it pushed them down the row of Running with Quantrill and Bloody Bill Anderson, and just all the cold-blooded murder that was associated with that. And here you have Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, growing up in that environment. And from what he wrote, especially in Huck Finn, it seems, and the evidence that of him supporting, what was his name?
Warner T. McGuinn.
Warner T. McGuinn. It seems that he probably already had sensitivity towards, I don't think the slavery thing is necessarily the right answer to this. But you were saying earlier his family owned a slave.
Yes. So Missouri was settled by people from Virginia, Tennessee, southern states. They came to Missouri for cheap land and settled Missouri. And they brought with them the practice of slavery and antebellum, which is why when you look up and down Main Street in Hannibal, it looks like you're looking up and down a southern downtown.
Sure,
like
that's a good point.
New Orleans or something like that.
Yeah.
So they brought all of that culture with them. And so the Clemens, his dad came from a family that owned slaves and owned land in the South. His mother, same thing. They came from prominent families that owned people and obviously enslaved them. So when they came to Missouri, they did. Samuel Clemens was born in Florida, Missouri, which is about an hour from Hannibal in Monroe County, Missouri. They came to Hannibal for land. And John Clemens wanted to run a business. He wanted to be a businessman of standing. So they did own slaves. I will say that slavery in Missouri, especially northeast Missouri, where we're at now, was a little bit of a different institution because of its location, obviously next to all these northern states and things of that nature. It wasn't so much working fields and things of that, doing major physical labor, because one, the people here didn't have the money for it, and they weren't producing like they were in the South with southern cash crops like cotton and things like that. So that's not where money was. So most people that owned slaves, it was more of a domestic situation. They took care of the home, they cooked, they cleaned, they lived in much poorer state than the family. And things like that. So, not that it was any better or any worse, it was just a different situation. Mark Twain's home, Samuel Clemens, the Clemens home here in Hannibal was literally 2 blocks away from the river. So Samuel Clemens saw ships up and down the Mississippi River in the 1800s, bringing all kinds of entertainment, goods, everything up and down the river. The Mississippi River was a very important thoroughfare for goods. That included people. That included enslaved colored people. 2 blocks from his home, he could see people in shackles waiting to get on the ship to go south. He would later say it's the saddest faces he ever saw in his life. This is as a boy.
Yeah.
His dad was the justice of the peace area, and rarely did he see justice done towards people of color.
Yeah.
He saw a murder in the streets and saw nothing done about it. So he was very sensitive to those things. But you have to understand, church was telling him slavery was moral. School was telling him slavery was right. All of these places that he was going, slavery was part of his culture.
A true brainwashing.
Right. But he would see minstrels, black minstrels, come off these boats who were not enslaved people. They were performers going upriver to perform somewhere north. And he obviously saw enslaved people go across to Illinois. Newspapers of the time, you would, if you go back and read, they would call them slave stampedes, where multiple slaves from different families, different ownership, would all get together. And when I say all, I mean like 11 people would get together and get over to Illinois, over to Quincy, through Mendon, up to Chicago, and disperse.
And that was their way of escaping to freedom.
That was their way of escaping to freedom. So you could literally, I mean, I could spit to Illinois right now if I wanted to. It's not that far. We can see it.
Right.
There's an island in between. So it was a tempting proposal for anyone.
Was the Underground Railroad big around here?
Oh, very much so. Quincy's full of spots like the Dr. Eel's house and things that are all Underground Railroad locations.
Any record of Harriet Tubman being in this area?
Not that I'm personally aware of. I'm sure there was. This area, when you look at it, this area was particularly kind of the middle and really became quite a hub, a commercial hub of goods and things, because it does have a central location on the Mississippi River. The river's wide here. There's bays. There's there's islands, there are places where you can dock a ship. There's all these kind of things. So it's also the middle of the country. So once you get to the middle of the river, you can disperse out from there. People coming across east to west would get to the river, dump their goods because they couldn't get them across the river and go. And so this place has a lot of history in it because this was a meeting place for people going west. It was a meeting place for people going north. It was a meeting place for people going south. So it really was this culmination of a very small town. I mean, you're talking, well, they called it a city of 2,000, maybe 2,500 at the time. But yet quite an array of life coming in and out of the place. So literally, if you stood at his front door, you can see the river. There was a pork processing plant up the road, so most mornings would be met with pork coming down the road. It was a dirt road at the time, if you were lucky enough to have it only be dirt. And so, he saw, there was no zoning. He saw life. He saw everything happen right outside of his door, right on the Mississippi River. That's why he wanted to be a riverboat pilot. He saw a riverboat pilot as the only truly free man in America.
Oh, he was like Jack Sparrow.
He was.
He thought it was just freedom. I also like that you said there was no zoning and he saw life, like the opposite of having a life is municipal zoning. Right. I've experienced that, but I think that's funny. His growing up and becoming who he was. There's actually a book about it, something the light or something, I forget. But its whole argument is talking about him out west, and basically it stops when he's like 30 or 35 when he starts becoming a writer. Was writing always a part of it? Because he wasn't like a famous writer till 3 to 4 decades into his life.
Writing was always a part of it. His first job was at the age of 13. His father died. He needed to get to work to help the family. He was a printer's apprentice, so he set print for the printers. He would print papers. His brother Orion would come to own newspapers, and he would write for Orion, often unpaid as a young teenager or late teens, early 20s. He wrote all the time, and he would even write. Like I said, he was a humorist, so he would write articles that never happened. He would say, expected to happen this afternoon, a boat will crash on the Mississippi River, 3 people will perish. But they would always have a funny, the Reverend so-and-so will take up collections. He would always have a funny twinge to the article, always writing under a pen name, never under Samuel Clemens. But he would always write, he would write for his brother and not get paid. He would later go up to Keokuk and write, Keokuk, Iowa. He would, obviously, like you said, there's plenty of places in Iowa that have a Twain connection because he wrote for newspapers up there. Matter of fact, I don't know if it's exactly what the book Roughing It was him and his brother's trip out west. His brother was appointed the governor-elect of Nevada. So he said, come with me. And essentially what Roughing It was, the book was a collection of articles that he wrote, I believe, for Harper's Magazine. He wrote a lot of articles for Harper's Magazine about traveling. He loved travel. Travel to him, there was no surer way to tell if you liked someone or hated them than by traveling with them. He also said that travel removed all prejudice and bigotry from men, to learn a new culture and to talk to people.
Yeah, there is a lot of truth to that.
So he's a huge, when it comes to travel, when we have visitors from other countries come here. We had 53 other countries come last year, represented. When they come here, they all know who Mark Twain is. They love the book Innocents Abroad. That's all about travel. That's about his Quaker cruise that he went to Europe and Asia and Africa and all over the place. And that became Innocents Abroad. So those were also articles that he had written for a magazine. And so he was always writing. He was a journalist first. He told the story of the world through his eyes and through his words. That was his start.
Was he? I mean, obviously, you do it longer, you get better. But Was he always good, or was it rough?
He was an extremely smart person. I mean, from the get, and he had to be. Again, to find attention from a large family, to stick out in a town like Hannibal, to have friends, to do all these things, to be a riverboat captain, to get out there and to get on the river and not be questioned about where the boat should go, where's the best place to be, that was unquestioned. His name the pen name he picked up is Mark Twain, which is a nautical term on the river. The lead man out would have the stick or whatever. The mark would be 6 feet, a fathom. So Mark Twain would be 2 fathoms deep, 12 feet, safe passage. So the man on the front of the boat would yell, quarter Twain, half Twain, Mark Twain, meaning it's safe passage. So that's his pen name, is Mark Twain.
I like that.
Why, if he wanted attention so bad, why did he start right away with a pen name and stick with that pen name to the point that most people don't know his name?
Again, public image. It was all about public image for him. It was about how he presented himself. When the white suit came into play, that was all about being seen. That was all about being recognized from instant that you saw him, you knew who he was.
Interesting.
And so that was all about public image.
He's really
he was
a showman.
Extremely polished public image. And that came from his mother. His mother, even as being poor, even when they couldn't afford to live in the Boyhood home anymore and moved to Grant's drugstore here in Hannibal, they lived upstairs with the Grants. Dr. Grant was the physician and doctor in town. And even when they lived up there, she would still host people for tea. She would still have social clubs. She would still do these things because she came from a family of standing, of social standing. So that's how she saw herself, regardless of their economic status. And so Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, he wanted to get to that. When he built that home in Hartford, Connecticut, it was so that he could bring people there and host them and show them what he became and what he was. I mean, that was all about public image for him.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we move on from the Civil War era, where was he while all that was going on? Was he still here?
He was on the river when it started. And then the Civil War and his brother Henry's death on the river shut it down. Traffic on the river became much, much less. He took the death of his brother very personally, and so he stepped away from that life and started writing. And so then I believe he went north from there.
Did he comment on the Civil War much in his writing after that, or did he kind of ignore it?
He definitely spoke about war. I think he definitely commented about it. I think he was very cautious. I mean, he still had family,
very charged,
living in the South. I mean, he again, image, things of that nature. I think if he couldn't find the humor in it, he probably didn't touch it. And so I'm sure that a lot of that to him, he addressed it in other ways, maybe not head on, but it certainly affected his life. Again, Tom Sawyer was written right around, I think, 11 years. The time frame would have been 11 years before the Civil War. I think it was released 9 or 10 years after the Civil War. So, I mean, that was all obviously a huge part of his life and a huge part of his writings from there forward. Looking at, Huckleberry Finn, that's all about, again, a young white boy trying to figure out that dilemma in his mind. And so I think he addressed it. I don't think he probably came out and said things directly. He didn't like politics at all. He didn't like any politician. I think he only supported one politician ever in his life. And he didn't like institutions. He didn't like religion. I mean, he would make fun of everything. And so I think to an extent he probably...
Very irreverent.
Right, yeah.
So along those lines... a thing that's always kind of intrigued me about Samuel Clemens is he was, like you said, he had that irreverency in his writing. He really told things like they were. But this is happening during the Victorian era where things are very proper, very elegantly worded. I mean, he was a contemporary of Charles Dickens, and it had to be almost this loudmouth megaphone voice poking through every other writer at the time, their style. I love watching anything done by the Coen brothers. that's set in that Victorian era, because they go hard on the old Victorian white woman, and the elegant ignorance of of the opinions and the rigidness and all that. And Samuel Clemens' writing is just such a pie in the face of that,
right?
And
he coined the term Gilded Age. He was the first to say it. I mean, that was his phrase, his term. And so he definitely saw, I guess you could say it was a two-way mirror, because he could see through it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, on the other side, he wanted to be a part of it. I mean, he built that beautiful Victorian mansion for a reason.
Yeah.
He definitely wanted to have that standing in that society while also making fun of it.
Yeah. Do you think that's why his writing became so popular, because it was something so new and so different from everything else?
I think deep down it's still popular because it is humor.
Yeah.
It very rarely took a hard stance one way or the other. His writings would simply
make fun of everybody
and let you figure that out for yourself. We're often asked at times, how do you, exhibits and things, how do you dance around this topic? We don't have to. Yeah. Mark Twain said it.
Right.
Mark Twain said it. Mark Twain wrote it. Yeah. Our mission is Mark Twain. It's very easy to let the man speak for himself. And so if you go back and you read the books and you look at his speeches and you read the quotes, you're going to see a man that, again, just wanted to find the funny, wanted to find the humor, but also wanted to be a part of it. And I think that that's probably a pretty common theme for a lot of people.
As someone who represents him, do you ever just think, Mark, why did you say that? Like, I keep having to defend you on this stupid thing.
I don't have to defend him at all. He can defend himself. He's much more Mark Twain than I am. And trust me, the Mark Twain journals. You look at what Berkeley's doing. They're still studying Twain.
Yeah. He was prolific. I mean, the amount that he produced, just in terms of quantity, let alone quality.
Letters, speeches, books, lectures. I mean, it's endless.
Yeah.
And you can go back and you can try to pick through and decipher. And I think that was a little bit of his point too. I'm going to say something. I'm going to put it in your face, and you're going to deal with it how you're going to deal with it.
Interesting. The only person I can think of in the last 200 years that is similar in terms of prolificness of how much quantity of high quality output there was, I'm thinking like Lewis, like C.S. Lewis. I wouldn't put Tolkien up there because he seemed to have less out there than Lewis did.
You mean like a lot of small works to go with it?
Yeah. And I mean, Lewis he spoke and spoke and spoke and spoke on top of that. I don't know. Anybody else that you would think of that just like the body of work is obscene?
I mean, Hemingway wrote a lot, and probably a lot that you've never seen or heard. But Hemingway was a huge Twain fan. Hemingway, I don't know if he coined the father of American literature, but he was a huge Twain fan. And, for Twain, I think some of that comes from the fact that he did start and grow up as a journalist. He had deadlines. He had to write every day.
Yeah.
He had to have something. And so for him, not writing was not breathing. It was not working.
Interesting. So I wrote a book once. I've said that on this podcast before. It's terrible. No one will ever read it.
Sure.
In terms of I won't let anybody read it. But I had to sit down.
He tried to do like a Dr. Seuss knockoff. It's awful.
Took me 2 years. It was 16 pages. No. No. I mean, it was maybe 140 pages. But it took me 6 months.
Dr. Seuss people just don't have that attention span for 140.
Yeah.
Well, no, it took me 6 months. The first draft, 2 hours, 3 times a week. And I got done and I said, I might do this again one day. But I had a deep respect for people like Brandon Sanderson, the fantasy writer, who the amount of work, that guy sits down 5 times a week for 6 hours in order to, knowing how long it takes just to type, let alone rethink or rework and so
But your livelihood didn't depend on it.
No, but I mean, he must have loved it to decade after decade sit down at the table and write by hand over and over again. And I would pay my net worth to have a collection of the papers he crumpled. So
I will say things that I will compare to Mark Twain. If you look at someone like Bill Watterson, the artist of Calvin and Hobbes, someone that does like a period, something like that, where they're having to be creative 365 days.
It's just a talent.
Content for 365 days a year.
I don't expect you to watch anime. You watch any anime?
I watch a little bit of anime with the kids and stuff. We all like a little bit of anime.
My wife and I have been following the show One Piece. It's on episode like 1300. Yeah. Right? And Oda, who's the author.
Oh my goodness.
Dude. You can't respect
officially
this.
Turned this into
you're
an
like
anime
hardly a
podcast.
human if you can't respect this. Every week he puts out an episode, not of the TV, but of his written version of it. Every week, the craft. Yeah. I mean, anyone, and Mark Twain. Do you think his stuff, like towards the end of his life, is his best stuff?
I think, my favorite is A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. That's one of my favorite books of all time, and for me, it's my favorite of his. It's one of the very first examples of science fiction writing. It's a man that goes back in time from that time period to medieval times. Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, and his friends would play pirates and Robin Hood and knights in shining armor. That's what they would run off on the hill and play. And so he loved things like that. And so knights in shining armor, he just absolutely loved it. That's a great book, and it's a true children's book. It's a really nice adventure. It's got baseball in it. So it's a great book. And
is it same age frame, written for like Huck Finn is, like middle school, like kind of a kid's book?
And I mean, obviously Huck Finn, I will say Huck Finn touches on subjects that it used to be schools would read them. Schools, it was on a mandated reading list. Sometimes it was banned. It's been up and down all over the place. Huck Finn is, I would say, for the more mature. Whereas Tom Sawyer, like if you were to say, if Huck Finn is Lord of the Rings, then Tom Sawyer is The Hobbit.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Sawyer is more about the childhood adventures that he had in St. Petersburg / what is Hannibal, painting the fence, sneaking off on the hill, going to the island, those kind of things, getting stuck in a cave, finding treasure, all those kind of things were childhood adventures. Whereas Huck Finn, even though it is a child on an adventure, it addresses much more mature topics.
When I was in college, I worked for a marketing company, and it was a small marketing company, and my boss, he was a really cool guy, and I remember him taking me to lunch one day and telling me, Nicholas, the most important thing you'll do in business is name your company. I don't know if that's true or not, but you better believe I was blown away when I met the company Iowa Cover Crop. I mean, it's a brilliant name, but it's a little misleading because you might think, oh, okay, they do cover crops. But they actually do a lot more than cover crops. Basically, if it's not corn and beans, they probably have it. You're talking about grains, alfalfas, lawn mixes, cover crop mixes, forage mixes. They do all sorts of things. In fact, they even have CRP and native mixes. I really like the people who provide those for them. If you are looking for anything that's not corn and beans and seed and you're in Iowa or a state touching Iowa, I highly, highly recommend looking into Iowa Cover Crop. That's iowacovercrop.com. Oh, and they have a new podcast. I really enjoy it. They didn't ask me to put this in the ad. I just wanted to because I've really enjoyed their podcast. Super informational. If you're looking to learn more about cover crops for your farm and how they can apply for your specific situation, you're going to want to check it out. It's called Under the Covers. Again, that's iowacovercrop.com.
So he wrote like Roughing It, Innocents Abroad, but he also wrote the Calendar of Pudd'nhead Wilson, the Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. Those were all originally, those are supposed to be funny children's books for the time. And so he did write, again, like you said, with gusto. He wrote everything. And he never stopped. One of his favorite things to do was to lay in bed and write. And even as a old man, he would lay in bed and write. So he he definitely
now people lay in bed and scroll.
There you go. Yeah. It's much more productive than what I
look at this Mark Twain quote I have here on my phone.
But yeah, so for me, he speaks for himself on so many ways that I don't have to defend him. I don't have to explain. I don't have to do any. I sit in a very unique position to be able to just enjoy, preserve, and distribute, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's easier to defend genuinely good people. Everyone's flawed. So, sure. But I really like your approach. Mark Twain is who he is. I'm not defending one way or another. You're just trying to paint an accurate picture.
That's right.
I'm curious if you could require every American to read one of his bodies of works. Mm-hmm. What would you require?
Huck Finn.
Okay.
Huck Finn's his masterpiece. Huck Finn's the one that you're going to have the most discussion about. Huck Finn's the one that's going to make you look inward at yourself. Huck Finn is his definitive work. Now, if you're asking me what should I be reading to my kids, go get Tom Sawyer, go get Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court, Prince and the Pauper. Mark Twain wrote Prince and the Pauper. So those are the books that you should be reading to your kids to get them interested. And then, when it's time for them to start looking at, that's up to you as a parent, I guess, to decide, or if you trust the schools or whatever. But my kids actually have an anime copy of Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, both. They have a manga copy of both. So,
man, did you read it in school, Huck Finn?
Oh, yeah. Well, I grew up 30 minutes from here, so we read it.
That's fair.
Every school field trip we took was over to Hannibal to go to the Mark Twain caves, to ride on the riverboat, to visit the Boyhood home and museum. We definitely read it around here. I'm pretty sure the Hannibal schools read it. We have a 3rd grade class coming from my hometown here in a week. So we have a lot of schools that still come. We have colleges that come. They bring vans and buses. We have people that come on cruise ships down the Mississippi River, adults. We get... That's the best part, is we get such a wide range of people. Zhao Fei from China came to last summer. He's the grandson of Lu Xun, who was they call him the father of modern Chinese literature. They stopped short of comparing him and Mark Twain, but he also came from a small village in China. He wrote in the common vernacular, the dialect of the time. He was the voice for the people. So there's a lot of comparisons there. Yeah. And so his grandson came and visited us and brought us a plaque.
That's really interesting. The government of China as well?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Zhao Ling said that 200 million Chinese 7th grade students, that age of student, are required to read Tom Sawyer.
Wow.
We got a call from South Korea. We have the Tom and Becky program here, where we select 10 students, 8th grade students, to represent Hannibal as Tom and Becky. We have 5 Toms, 5 Beckys. We have an official couple that is the official Tom and Becky. They are ambassadors to Hannibal. They travel all over the place. As a matter of fact, I'm going with them to Calaveras County in California this summer for the fair, where they have the jumping competition. They've been to Hartford, Connecticut. We actually got connected by South Korea, wanted to bring Tom and Becky over because they'd like to start their own Tom and Becky program. There's apparently a cartoon over there with a theme song that everybody knows. We have copies here. It's been published in over 70 languages. I've got copies in Portuguese, Mandarin, you name it, I've got it. Yeah. And so we get visitors from all over, and they all know who Tom Sawyer is. They all know who Huckleberry Finn is. And they'll even sing you the song that they got from their country. So
that is amazing.
What this was actually supposed to be our very first question, and Kent, please interrupt me if you.
Don't go there yet. That's that's too disjointed. One of the things that I've found to be so interesting is we've really talked a lot about the white collar life of Mark Twain, and just a phenomenon that I have been guilty of in my life, and I see so many men who are in a white collar profession. is they reference back to their blue collar experience all the time. It's like there's some sort of credibility that comes from that. Whether it's a pastor talking about, I worked on my car over the weekend or whatever. It's like, don't you just sit around books all week? Or, like there's something about that. And it seems that same aspect that's a part of human nature, at least of the American man, that was a part of, he chose Mark Twain for his pen name. That's a very white collar, a very blue collar term.
Yeah. And
it seems that he really looked back at that time as a riverboat captain with great fondness, and perhaps maybe would have kept doing it had those huge interruptions of the Civil War, the loss of his brother that you talked about. Do you think that would have happened and maybe we would have never had Mark Twain, the writer?
I do. He often talked about the fact that growing up here in Hannibal, that's what that everybody wanted to either be a pirate or a minstrel or a riverboat captain. And the riverboat captain was the one that all the boys wanted to be. It was always like that. He said that the riverboat captain was the only untethered man in America, that he ranked above royalty because he was unquestionable in his decision making. He loved river life. Again, he grew up 2 blocks from the Mississippi River. So he loved the river life. Their adventures were on the river. They'd get on a raft. Nowadays, I'm not going to let my 13-year-old go run down to the river by himself and go, just not happening.
Right.
Back then, it was common. They would be gone for days. That's the whole story about the fake funeral.
No wonder 9-year-olds made it to only 50%.
So they would just be,
50% of them made it.
They were unhinged and they would be wherever they wanted to be. And so very much for them, it was very much you had to prove, just like I think it's probably for a lot of people, that you had the guff to do the work.
Yeah.
You could write all day long, but if I don't believe in your experience, then why would it echo with me? If you're not being genuine in that, then it means nothing.
Yeah.
And so for him to say, yes, as a matter of fact, as a boy, I did all these things. And as a young man, I started working at the age of 13 to help support my family. That was very important to him. And he, like I said, he was a family man. So making sure that his family was supported, even if it was through white collar work, was very important to him. Now, his dad was a very bad businessman. His family was broke. His brother was a very bad businessman. Mark Twain was a very bad businessman. Mark Twain went bankrupt twice in his life.
Oh, wow.
He backed the wrong technology for typewriter. Lost out to the linotype, and he had some other ventures that didn't go the way they should. To build the home in Hartford, Connecticut, he actually used his wife's inheritance money and actually even wrote an apology to her for doing so. That's why he spent a lot of time in Europe. It was much cheaper to live in Europe. They could live for much less, and he could make a lot of money in the lecture halls doing his lectures, which again were essentially an hour to 2 hour long stand-up specials is what he was doing before they had such a thing called stand-up. He would do these lectures where he would go into these halls and there's pictures of him sprawled out on a chair and people fanning him because he's been so passionately speaking for so long that he's exhausted. So he would make a lot of money selling a lot of tickets, traveling all over Europe and doing these things. He got his Oxford robe, his Oxford gown for his honorary degree from Oxford. That was a huge deal to him. We actually have that gown here in this building.
Oh, really?
And so, yes, it was for him, showing that he could do the work was just as important as anything else. He became a riverboat captain because he got on a boat as a passenger and went to the captain and said, I'll pay you $200 to teach me how to be a riverboat pilot. And that's what he did. And started working on the boat and apprenticed and got a licensed riverboat pilot. So yes, it was very much about the work and showing that he could do it.
Yeah, that's always struck me. That I think it probably came when I learned about no, it's not actually Mark Twain, it's Samuel Clemens. Mm-hmm. Mark Twain is a river captain term. Right. And it's like, man, he really identified with that. That's so we've been talking around this, but I want to hit it head on here. And really probably the crux as far as our audience is concerned. Mm-hmm. Mark Twain helped shape the Midwest. I mean, you just described it, how people come from around the world to be in the Midwest because Mark Twain was here.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because he grew up during the shaping of the Midwest.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is kind of interesting, the forming of it.
Yeah, he was famous in his own time, and he like you're saying, Nicholas, he was a part of it, our shaping.
Right. And
had he just remained a riverboat captain, how do you think the Midwest would be different without the writings and mind of Mark Twain?
So they call us around here Forgotten Tonia. We're the flyover.
Yeah.
So I think that to some extent, I think that, yes, we would be, as a culture, we would be even less off. The thing that I think Mark Twain shows, and why I think the Midwest will continue to be a place of surprising culture to most people, is that this truly is the place where all of these people that settled in America met. When you're talking about the coast, like the East Coast, you can go into a neighborhood and go, well, this is the Irish neighborhood. This is the German neighborhood.
Yeah.
This is when you start to get into the Midwest is where you think, okay, these people were moving west.
Yeah.
They're not concerned anymore about where they're landing and where they're sticking with their people. They've got to survive out here.
That's a great point.
And so a lot of times, people, even with their preconceived prejudice and things, would end up, that would change because your neighbor, you might have to rely on them one day.
Right.
And it doesn't matter who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Midwest, even though I think a lot of people would think white bread, bland, like I said, Forgotten Tonia, the Midwest really is quite an interesting melting pot. And for Mark Twain to have seen that from a town of 2,000 people is an amazing story unto itself. Now, would have Mark Twain have been probably the best, well-written and funniest riverboat pilot you ever heard of? Sure. But would you have heard of him internationally? Probably not.
Right.
Look at comedians nowadays, and when you're talking about people like Rudd, Jason Sudeikis, names are escaping me right off the bat, but a lot of them come from the Midwest.
Richard Pryor.
Yeah, I mean,
Peoria, Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, all of them. So, I mean, you run down Nikki Glaser, who's hot right now, is from St. Louis. All these things, they come from the Midwest. There's a reason they're funny. There's a reason that they can do it. It is the culture of this area. He personified it. He glamorized it for the world. And when people come here, that's what they want to see. They want to see downtown Americana. They want to be pulled back to that time. And it really connects with everybody. I mean, think about your childhood.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about? The small little community you grew up in. The street lights being on.
Yep.
You running down the street with your best friend, sneaking around doing something you probably weren't supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So that connects with everybody, and that's what brings them back to the Midwest. Had he not written about that, would we still have that nostalgia? Sure. It just wouldn't be as widespread as it is. I wouldn't be welcoming a Polish Franciscan monk to the door.
Yeah.
And so, we pull in people from all over because they know that this is a place where people survived. This is a place where people made it work, no matter who was around them. I think for a lot of people, they can identify with what he grew up in, what he grew away from, grew into. All of those things are a personal experience that people can relate to.
Yeah. Man, that was so well said and really laid out well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So he writes Huck Finn, he writes Tom Sawyer, and we talked about him. We talked about Mark Twain or Samuel Clemens, what formed him into being able to write something so, I mean, besides just natural talent and intelligence, what formed him. But what if he was throwing out seed, what made America at the time, what made its soil in such a way that it received him so readily that he grew into the monstrous, in a good way, large personality and fame? And as you were saying before this, like kind of the first U.S. celebrity, the worldwide celebrity. What was it about America that made his writings and books so it was like inflammatory? It was like even if his light was a good light, it like the brush that it hit was so dry that it just went up in flames. What happened?
He you know, I think the reason that his plantings caught on of his ideas and his books and his writings and his speeches is because it either resonated with you in a good way or it resonated you with in a way that chafed you. And if it chafed you, you wanted to say something about it, and he thrived on that.
Negative comments on Facebook, it still makes the post go more viral.
He was one of the first people to say, "There's no way I could pay for promotion like that."
That's true. When
libraries on the East Coast would ban his books, and he would go, "Thank you, you just sold me."
Yeah,
thousands of books.
Yeah. The old. Don't look at that over there.
He very much knew how to play the system so that those things would catch on. He knew. Tom Sawyer was originally released June 9th, 1846. Am I doing my math right? Whatever. 150 years ago, June 9th. It was originally released in Europe and Canada because he knew that if he released it in America, that it would get copied and be trademark copyright laws were much, much different. So he originally released in England and Canada. It didn't get released here until months later. And so he was very smart about the system. He knew how to plant those seeds. He knew how to get people to talk about him. He knew how to get people to talk about the works that he had done. Now, like I said, it either struck a chord with you in a positive light and you could agree with him, or it chafed you in such a manner that you were going to talk about it. He made sure that he addressed those. If somebody banned his book, he'd talk about it. He wouldn't shy away from it. He'd talk about it. He'd give you some kind of quote that you would walk away going, yeah, there you go. So he spoke about experiences that most people have, whether it's, I got to go do this chore, I don't want to go do it, or there's that cute girl next door that I want to go talk to for the first time, or I want to live a life of adventure. These are all things that we've all experienced in our own right. And so, he was able to combine relative stories, relatable stories to really good writing.
Yeah.
Really relatable writing. Again, with Huckleberry Finn, you're talking about a book that's narrated by Huckleberry Finn in the common vernacular of the time.
Yeah.
Which is why you use slang words in it, because people use slang words, especially in Missouri.
Yeah.
So was it like a slow avalanche that rolled out of control, or was it inflammatory right away?
So he had success with a lot of his early articles and things like that, and some of his early books. Tom Sawyer obviously is where he really took off. And then 7 years later, almost 8 years later, Huckleberry Finn came out, which is, Huckleberry Finn is considered his masterpiece.
But when it hit the printing press, did it fly off the shelves right away?
For sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people loved it.
Interesting.
He was commercially a success instantly with those books. 7 years after Tom Sawyer came out is when he released Huckleberry Finn. So even then, as a sequel, people still were looking forward to it. He actually wrote multiple sequels: Tom Sawyer Abroad, Tom Sawyer Detective. So yes, he commercially was a very much a success. Again, he wasn't very good with that money, but he was a success.
On a podcast, I heard that when he became a boat captain, they got paid quite a bit, and he just spent it all on like food and luxuries.
Yeah.
He blew through all of it.
He loved cigars. He loved whiskey. He loved life. Yeah. He loved to experience life. He loved to experience things. I'm sure for him, cigars and whiskey was a social thing. He loved talking to people. Growing up on his family's farm, he had a family that had a farm that they would go to and spend summers at. And they would actually, as kids, end up going to the slave quarters and listening to Uncle Daniel Quarles talk and tell stories about life. He spent a lot of time sitting around a lot of campfires with a lot of different people, just listening to personal experiences and stories. And that's where he got a lot of his stuff from.
Drew inspiration from that. Yeah. What's interesting to me is, and one of my questions I had, and I can, I'm kind of rewording it now, I suppose, but we would be in a different place with cultural commentary if it wasn't for Samuel Clemens, because his style was so different. But yet, even though it was less prim and proper, it was less elegant, it was more plain speak. It seemed to have elevated the culture in the long run, especially as it comes to the issues of slavery and how we view people of color, and it seemed to be part of that healing for our country. And it's interesting how that happened, because we have seen other points in our history where cultural commentary shifts. I think of the big one being back in the 2016 election cycle, when Donald Trump was in that Republican debate for the Republican primaries, right? And he just dressed down Jeb Bush, who's he, of all the guys on the stage, I think there was like 9 of them or something. Jeb Bush represented the old guard. His dad was president, his brother was president, and Donald Trump was up there, and he didn't follow any of those rules. And it stands out. And now, as we look at political commentary now, personally, I think it hasn't helped us. That shift in language, I think, has brought out a lot of ugliness in our country, and both sides. The way that politicians address each other, talk. I mean, it doesn't matter what level, not just president. I mean, it's much harsher. The gloves have come off. That shift, like we see in Clemens' writing, coming down from this high and mighty, high-mindedness way of talking to this, riverboat captain way of talking. Somehow that was able to bring healing, and yet this other shift that we've seen over the last 10 years now, that hasn't been the result. It doesn't seem that we're anywhere closer to each other than we were 10 years ago.
Yeah. I would say, in my own personal opinion, and I'll walk out on the plank for this one, but in my own personal
anytime
opinion,
you say the name Donald Trump, you're walking out on the plank.
But I would say, you used to say, speak softly, carry a big stick. Well, now it's speak really loudly and say you have a stick.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think that in Mark Twain's time, and especially for Mark Twain, the challenge was to speak loudly, be heard in a time before radio, TV, social media. I mean, pen to paper, press to paper. I mean, distribution, all these things. In that kind of a time, for him, it was more speak loudly and carry a big stick, both. You better have the substance to back up what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're going to be in trouble. And in a time where people read your words in length.
That's a great point.
And not just listened to what you had to say, or read the headline and the tagline and moved on with their life.
Yep.
In a time where reading was entertainment, information, all the ways that you communicated, he found the best way to make sure people remembered.
That's a great point.
And he was very well, he crafted that. He knew how to do it.
It's a lot easier to be choosy with your words when you're writing them down as opposed to.
And his wife Olivia, who he loved very, very much, would be the first person to read it and would edit it before it went to anybody else. That doesn't happen with your social media post.
Right, yeah.
Which is why you sit there and you go, oh, harumph, harumph, harumph. And then later you go, why do I even care?
Yeah.
Why did I post that?
Yep.
Well, it's because you had this thought, and instead of filtering it through someone and them going, you sure about that?
Yeah.
You just wrote it out and sent it out to 1,000 people.
Yeah. Everywhere. I feel like this shouldn't actually happen.
So
but
we need to quote you on that. Speak loudly and pretend you have a stick, or
speak loudly and say you have a stick.
Yeah, that is where we're at, isn't it?
Ken, I actually liked Kent's thought on social media, and you've just been too busy basically since Dad passed away to even do social media. But his thought is like, there's not enough people writing good things, positive things on social media. I work really hard at having like some humor on social media once a week or so, just something like people can laugh at. Or I like to ask questions of my friend group, like of the people I'm actually friends with on Facebook, and just engage in like good conversation in the comments to like help work that muscle. But I'm curious, we talk about keyboard warriors. That's a term for people who are fighting social justice, whatever they're fighting for in the comments on Facebook.
Right.
And people just slandering each other. And then you go to the top of the media levels and the top, officials in our country just slandering other people. And I mean that, I think way more today, but that PR one against the other has been happening to some degree for thousands of years. Did Mark ever engage in like rivalry where he'd be like, the New York Post is fake news? Did he ever do any of that?
No, I think he would probably just say something funny about whatever and move along.
He was just so much funnier and dominant with his words.
I think that if he wanted to go, I think if he wanted to get in a beef with anybody, if he wanted to have a battle with anybody, I'm sure he could win that battle, and I'm sure he probably had that thought in his mind.
Yeah.
I mean, he certainly had his own ego to deal with. Like I said, he released his biography 100 years after his death, and it's 3 volumes long. His autobiography, and it's just a stream of consciousness. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but people will read it. People love it.
Did you like it?
I haven't read all of it. I read the edited version of it, and it was fine.
I've been there.
But it's he. To me, I think a lot of people in social media, and I'm certainly guilty of this myself. You have a reaction to something, and instead of, again, having that sounding board of somebody that's there with you, or somebody that is trusted, or somebody that you would say it to first, normally you would just say it to your buddy at the next get together or whatever. And then he'd go, what?
Yeah.
There's no filter anymore. Wow. There is no filter. Everybody has a box that they can stand up on.
Yeah.
Everybody can say what they want to say. Everybody's got a microphone. You've got a camera in your pocket. And so to me, anybody can tell the story of the world through their lens and through their voice. They have that platform now.
Yep.
Back then, that was not the case. It was a selective process of who could tell that story and who could show the picture of the world.
Yeah.
Mark Twain just happened to be really, really good at it. Mm-hmm. And so he did have those filters. He had his wife. He had people read his stuff because he knew that if he was to just do an unabridged 3-volume writing of something, it would never catch on.
Right. Yeah.
So he was, again, so meticulous about image and what was put out there and how he was seen and understood and things of that nature. Now, he would definitely like for you to make up your own mind, but no matter what your thought was, he would say, that's exactly what I wanted you to think.
Yeah.
Interesting. It almost seems like he wanted to be a heavy influence on people, but he had an ego part that was like, maybe the world would just be better if I could change all of them, but he had a deeper core value of like, but people should be kind and think for themselves.
I think he looked at morals and mores and all these different things as not just guidance, but maybe something that was a little flexible, that you could find things in those lessons that you could use and things that you could forget. Mm-hmm. And I think he was selective about that knowledge for himself. he definitely was not ignorant to the fact that he had a past from where he came from and who he was. But as a man and as he took shape and his family and all those things, I think what you really saw was somebody that himself was editing himself, filtering himself, really trying to make sure that the thing that was out there was the best version of him. Mm-hmm. And you can call that self-reflection. You can call that mental. He had his issues. He was not a perfect person. He had his flaws. However, he spoke in a way that it was okay to have those flaws. He recognized them. He knew them. He'd make fun of them himself. If you're not willing to do that, then I don't think you can make fun of anybody else or have the right to do so. I think he was able to look inward, and this is, again, in my opinion, look inward and see the good things in his life, the bad things in his life, what he could aspire to, what he would rather leave in the past. And so there was a lot of that for him. But again, when you look at it as a whole, he was a good person and he did good things overall. So, you know, where do you draw that line at?
Yeah, especially historical. You know, you talk about all sorts of heroic people, and you're like, well, and by the way, they also, you know, and then that list of like they also did gets pretty gnarly sometimes,
right?
And to some degree, it's culture, but some of it's just like that's weird.
Yeah,
that's like a weird thing that person did
for sure.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you hanging out with us today.
I got one last question for you.
He's going to bring it home.
I'm ready.
We like to ask these when we do when we interview historians on a certain character.
Sure.
If you could ask Samuel Clemens one thing, what would you ask him?
You had to have thought about this, right?
Yeah, and it's usually something very silly. I like comedy. I like humor. And so I would probably ask him what he finds the funniest. What is the funniest thing to you? You know, is it a well-written essay that has a lot of quick jab? I mean, what is it? What is funny to you? You obviously struck humor with everyone else. What makes you laugh? What's funny to you? Because again, for me, I love comedy. I think that that's, to me, one of the purest forms of entertainment is making somebody laugh. And he was able to do it worldwide when he didn't really have the platform to be able to do so. Yeah. His platform was a great big ship.
Yep.
And so he, I would really like to know what he truly found humor in. Was he just making fun of things, or did he hope that it would change things, or did he just want to make himself laugh? I don't know, but I really would like to know what he found funny.
Yeah.
Because that's really his legacy. That's what he was good at. And even to this day, that's what people that really know of him and know of his writings think of him, is he is a humorist. So just like if I was to talk to Jack Black, you know, I'm sure that, you know, being Steve in the Minecraft movie probably wasn't the most entertaining thing for him.
Yeah.
What makes you laugh? What's the thing when you're by yourself that you just can't stop laughing and your side hurts? So that's probably what I would ask him. There would be a lot of other questions, but I would think that it would be pretentious to ask most of them. So I would probably just stick with what do you think is funny?
I like that answer. I have a suspicion that it would have something to do with the dialogue of the king and the duke in Huckleberry Finn, where they're calling each other different insulting titles like Bilgewater and that. I remember when there was a student that I used to be a teacher, and at the high school there, they would have a list. I think they were banned books. I think because that was a banned book at one time. They had to choose a book and then find a teacher in the building that would read the book with them. And I remember when I got to that part, I was rolling when that dialogue between those guys.
I recently reread Tom Sawyer. 2026 will observe the 150th anniversary of the publication of Tom Sawyer, and so I recently reread it. You really have to include the inflection when you read it. Yeah. Otherwise, it's doesn't make sense.
Right.
And it's because of the language of the book, the language of the time.
Yep.
But if you read it, he describes he came out to the fence to whitewash the fence, and it was a fence 9 feet high with slats that went horizontally, and it was 36 feet long. That's not true. I mean, that was a boy's exaggeration.
Right.
That was him telling this story so that you could literally be the little kid standing there looking up at that fence going, this is going to take me all day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So he was an artist when it came to words, and for me to be able, if he was to say, I really think toilet humor is hilarious, I would just think that would be the best thing to know about him.
Mr. He knew John Crapper intimately. That would be wild.
Yeah. The outhouse is where I do my best work, but it would be very funny to hear him say,
is that a quote of his?
No, that's a quote of mine.
That's right off the old tongue. That's good, man. That's good.
Well, take us home, Nick.
Oh, man. Well, wait. Before someone wants to learn a lot more about Mark Twain,
yes.
What are they doing? Where are they going?
For sure. Obviously, I'd love for you to come to our website, marktwainmuseum.org. We have lots on there, including the history, his history, our history of all of our properties. We own 8 properties, including the Boyhood home, that have all been restored, renovated. The Boyhood home was bought. It was built in 1844. It was bought in 1911 and renovated, making it one of the oldest renovations in United States history.
Wow.
And it's been preserved that way ever since. And so I encourage you to come here to Hannibal. Again, we're celebrating the 150th anniversary of the publication of Tom Sawyer this summer. So
it's
we
a
have
cool town.
Oh,
it's a really pretty town.
It's beautiful.
If you like small town Americana, if you want to walk down Main Street and shop and eat and look into art galleries and experience the cave that he talks about and get on the boat and do all these fun things, this is the town to do it. This is where we've mixed that mix of fiction and reality of you can literally see Cardiff Hill where the boys ran up to play. You can see Jackson Island in the middle of the Mississippi River. These are the places he wrote and talked about. And so if you want to learn about him, this is probably the place to do it. Obviously, there are so many resources when it comes to Mark Twain. If you're looking for quotes alone, marktwainquotes.com is the most accurate. He's often misquoted. marktwainquotes.com.
So Goodreads is not is that good? Goodreads doesn't have like a quote page.
I would steer away from especially larger commercial sites.
Interesting. Okay.
There are a lot of misquotes that are attributed to Twain, and some of the more popular, politicians should be changed as often as diapers, and for the same reason. Many people think that that's a Mark Twain quote. It is not. Something about the bow lines of a ship. Mark Twain wasn't a sailor. He was a riverboat pilot. So no. But there are a lot of misquotes out there about Twain. But if you really want to look, marktwainquotes.com, and you can literally go down A through Z and find categories of quotes. Other than that, I would say start reading the books. Yeah. You want to understand the man, read what he wrote.
Yeah.
Read Tom Sawyer, read Huckleberry Finn, read Innocents Abroad. He wrote about Joan of Arc. Later in his life, one of his final works was a book all about Joan of Arc. He loved strong female characters. He absolutely loved writing about strong female characters. And so Joan of Arc, he was a huge fan of Joan of Arc and wrote a very excellent book about her life. And so if you really want to learn about him, read his works. Other than that, get online, look him up. I would warn anyone to always check your references and your sources and where these things are coming from. But, Berkeley is doing amazing things. The Mark Twain journals. This is not something that is hard to find. Ron Chernow, Pulitzer Prize winning biographer, just released his biography on Mark Twain in 2025. He was here. He released it in May. He came here in June and spoke about the book. Percival Everett wrote a book called James, which is a retelling of Huckleberry Finn through Jim's eyes. It won Book of the Year in 2024 for a lot of categories and a lot of people. He won the Pulitzer Prize for it in 2025. It's an excellent book.
Interesting.
It is actually, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, has been picked up for option for development by Amblin Entertainment, which is Steven Spielberg's production company. So hopefully that becomes a movie and has some pretty big names tied to it. That would be fantastic. But yeah, I mean, read the books, do your research, look up some of the more current things about him, and really dive in, because there's a lot there that you could learn about him and learn about the times and his life and things that happened and what shaped him into being who he was.
Man,
Yeah, well
that's
said.
cool. Well, he was definitely a brilliant mind that shaped culture, and that's what, I mean, at least the second half of that, Kent and I are working for it, and in terms of conservation and what happens here on the land, and you guys get it, that conservation, just like Mark Twain, shifting culture, it happens one mind at a time.